Turtle's definitely like one of the most knowledgeable players on our team. And I think a lot of people don't think of him that way. They think he's like this crazy guy who's just always looking to like go in and fight. But he's actually like really methodical about the game. And that's something that I've learned from him is like even those players that you see on stage and they're like making the crazy plays, they're thinking a lot about the general scheme of the game as well.
This is Azento with Esports Heaven, and I have here with me FlyQuest support and JayJ. And you guys just had a pretty good game, especially you on Tahm Kench. But I want to talk about the draft a bit because you didn't end up banning Akali.
Yeah.
So and then Clutch Gaming, they got their Akali, and this is a champion that everyone is looking at to say that it's kind of OP. So what are your thoughts on Akali within the competitive scene?
So Akali has its merits being played in the LCS. It's definitely a really good champion. But for this week, we decided that because it's such a high skill cap, for example, like Zed, Yasuo, that kind of stuff, that we would probably leave it up for this week and play against it. And then next week, we'll see if we still think it's really good or if we still think there's a lot of counterplay.
Okay, so I was looking at your champion history a little bit, and you have primarily played a lot of Braum, and then also Alistair as well too. So you played Tahm Kench. Now, from my eyes, Tahm Kench and Braum are like two very different champions. So what's kind of the key notes that you have to change in terms of your play style in order to play these two different champions?
I think the biggest difference is the Tahm Kench. You have to look at the ult, because Tahm Kench is basically a walking QSS with a global that like can take one person.
Yeah.
So when you're playing Tahm Kench, you're literally just playing team fights. You got to play to eat, and then like in the mid game, you're just looking for those ult angles, and then just kind of trying to blow up one side lane by ulting in. Whereas Braum pretty much just like pretty good all around. You can peel for your team. You can go in. And like you just have to have a completely different mindset playing the two.
Yeah. So with the Tahm Kench in this particular game, were you kind of looking to affect the side lanes? Because I saw that you got a couple good ults off actually to surprise the enemy bot lane too. So is that always going through your mind of where I can ult, what I can do to affect everyone else besides your own section of the map?
I think this game was a little weird because we were focusing on trying to establish vision a lot when there were a lot of good ults for me. Like I could have ulted Solo, who was playing GP, and from what I learned after the game is he was just playing like really disrespectful, and I just wasn't looking to ult him because I thought that we were doing something else. So I actually think this game I had a lot more angles that I didn't take, and like I have a lot of regrets about this game specifically.
Okay, well, so you've been playing with WildTurtle for a little bit, and he is historically one of the oldest ADCs within North America. So how is it just playing with him as an ADC player, but also in the context of him being in the professional scene longer than you?
Turtle's definitely like one of the most knowledgeable players on our team. And I think a lot of people don't think of him that way. They think he's like this crazy guy who's just always looking to like go in and fight. But he's actually like really methodical about the game. And that's something that I've learned from him is like even those players that you see on stage and they're like making the crazy plays, they're thinking a lot about the general scheme of the game as well.
Okay, yeah, that puts it into perspective of because his character, at least within the game, seems as though he's doing these erratic things. But you're saying he's a lot more talkative than what that might appear to be as like a fan.
Yeah, I think he actually, in games where he gets ahead, he's actually probably like the primary shot caller, and he knows exactly his limits, what he can do, and like how he can progress the game from him being ahead. So he's definitely a person that I've been looking up to since I joined the team.
So speaking of communication, you now have Santorin on the team, but that's a very different jungler versus Aliro, which you just faced against Clutch Gaming. And how important do you think communication is for a jungler, especially maybe as a Korean jungler versus a, well, he's European, but English-speaking jungler, right?
Well, last split on Academy, I played with Shrimp, and although he's not a native English speaker, his English was pretty good for the most part, and like he knew how to get a point across. So I think even if English isn't your primary language, it's still like definitely playable. You just might have some difficulty looking for like very specific things and explaining things like post game and VOD review and stuff. So I've been lucky that when I had Shrimp, even if he couldn't get a point across, we had Keen who could translate. And like for example, this split we have Flame who is like very good at explaining his points anyways.
Okay, yeah. So next week you face against Golden Guardians and Cloud9. And Cloud9 are looking pretty good with their Zillion and their Kindred compositions and whatnot. But I'd like to ask you, which team are you kind of looking more towards as a threat?
I think of the two, Cloud9 is definitely the stronger looking one. At the start of the split, they had a lot of roster changes, and I wasn't sure if like they were good or not. And then like Golden Glue was popping off, but then sometimes Jensen was popping off, and then sometimes both of them were not doing well at all. So right now, I think they're a very strong team, and I think we'll probably have a pretty well thought out plan versus them because they're kind of close to, or I think we're tied right now. So we definitely have to beat them if we want to get good seeding for playoffs.
Okay, well, that's all I really have for you. This has been Zento from Esports Heaven and JayJ from FlyQuest. Thank you.
Thank you.
I assume if you made it this far, you probably enjoyed the content. So if you did, subscribe and also check out my other content that's more analytical and opinionated. But otherwise, keep it locked at esportsheaven.com, and I'll see you next time. Peace.